am Billy Dees, and welcome to the podcast. I'll tell you what, if you have never checked out our podcast before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, on down the line, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Billy Dees. That's kind of my social media home. Feel free to check me out there. You have to be nice now. If you're going to tweet me, you got to be nice. Hey, on the studio line today, I have Pat Morrow. How are you doing, Pat?
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I did pronounce your name correctly, right? I should have asked you that before. I just kind of presumed it was Morrow, but I wanted to be sure.
It's like tomorrow without the T.O.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. That's funny. Anyway, Pat is an interesting guy. Pat has an internet radio station. We're going to talk about that. A number of different programs on there. And he is also a ham radio operator. So lots to talk about there. We can geek out today. We're going to talk about maybe social media and some other things. But I got to tell you, Pat, the elephant in the room right now has to be what's going on with the coronavirus.
You got that right.
We're here in Ohio, for those of you that may not know. Pat's actually about maybe 45 minutes up the road from me in a different town, but we're both in Ohio, and I actually work for a healthcare provider, and we're under all these new rules now, and we're following all the state and all of the federal guidelines for what we should be doing, and all that is very important, I believe. But the one thing I would like to say is this. I know a lot of times people say, well, shouldn't you always be washing your hands? Should you ever go to work when you're sick? And they seem like obvious things to do or not do. But I myself, there's been a lot of times when, let's say I was shoveling snow and my sinuses got aggravated and I went to work anyway, or, little things, you don't feel quite right, but you go to work anyway. I'm kind of one of those people. But with this going on now, you can't take the chance. Okay. And it may not make a difference to you as an individual, but when you consider the millions of people throughout the state, if just a handful of them take a chance when they shouldn't, that means somebody could be exposed to this virus that doesn't need to be. So I am all for all of these guidelines and all the things that you're hearing in the news. But I was going to throw this back to you, Pat, because it does seem like there's a certain amount of hysteria involved.
I kind of wonder where this hysteria is going to end. DeWine this afternoon came out and told everybody that you're not allowed to have over 100 people in a room.
Yeah.
And he's also going to close down all the schools in Ohio.
Yeah.
For
a couple of weeks.
There's a kind of a concern there. You're so panicked that you're going to stop educating your children. What the heck is with this?
Yeah.
I understand wanting to be safe and stuff like that. I understand the pandemic end of this. It's actually pretty much trickled down into the amateur radio stuff, and you'd be amazed at what it's doing to that.
Really?
Yeah. What's happening is, first of all, we do these things called ham fests.
Okay. And then just to let the audience know, this is ham radio, correct?
Yeah, it's amateur radio.
Okay. And what does ham stand for?
Well, what it used to, there's no real definition as to where the ham came from.
Okay.
Some people think that you had to use your hand in order to, in the early days of CW or Morse code, you had to hold in order to hit the keyer, you had to hold your hand in a fist.
Oh, okay.
Well, it kind of looks like a ham hock, and they think that's where the ham came from.
All right.
So in order to hit the keyer, you had to pound on it,
Yeah.
And that's more or less where they think the title ham came from.
Okay, and you're having these ham fests now. And I guess those are, what are those, like little gatherings?
They're like garage sales. And
okay.
A lot of these things, like the one that I'm actually the president of Chicago Falls Amateur Radio Club.
Okay.
And our Hamfest usually draws between 500 and 600 people. Our Hamfest was scheduled up until about 20 minutes ago for the day before Easter.
Okay.
It's a Saturday event.
Uh-huh.
Now, from what I'm understanding, my 600, 700 people are not allowed to be in the same room together.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it.
This is putting one heck of a hardship on not only my group, but anybody else that's planned one of these.
Yeah.
There's also, if you know anything about amateur radio, there's a lot of public service groups that are involved with us.
Okay.
One being a group called ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Service. They had this coming weekend. They had a big meeting, a quarterly meeting scheduled for to be at the Toledo Hamfest.
All right.
As a part of a sidebar for that, Toledo Hamfest now has been canceled as of 2 days ago, and so is this meeting. Yeah, so you're canceling huge events because of this.
Yeah.
In May, we've got this thing called the Dayton Hamvention that is actually in more or less by Xenia now. They had to move it because the place that they were in went out of business and they were tearing a building down.
All right.
But this Hamvention, they get 25 to 30,000 people every year. A lot of that comes in from across the world. Guess what's not going to be there this year?
Yeah.
And it's just it's amazing the trickle down that this is causing.
Yeah.
And it's probably not. Look at what they've done to the NBA now.
Yeah, it's indefinite. I don't know if they're going to finish the season or not. I don't know if that's been determined, quite frankly.
I don't know that it has or not either.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you do get a point. And here again, I want to be very clear. I'm not in any way, shape, or form minimizing this or to say to take it lightly. But it seems like there's the people that totally blow it off. If you follow social media, there's people that say that this is a hoax.
Exactly.
And it's nothing to worry about. And that I would never take any type of virus that way. Never, no matter what it is. All right. And then there's the other people who have it on the level, an extinction level event, and it's somewhere in between. There's common sense.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me. I'm just kind of wondering now where some of these people are taking it they're washing their hands with alcohol based stuff and they're washing the skin off of their hands. And I just wonder at what point are you doing more harm if you're going to go off the deep end with this?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, what I would want to say is here again, I'm not taking this lightly. I wouldn't advise anybody to take it lightly. Follow what your local media is saying. Follow what your local outlets are saying. Follow the CDC and just be reasonable. Keep tabs on what's going on. And if it would happen to turn into a horrible outbreak, then at that point, then you take the next steps. But it's a day by day thing, and so anyway, with that being said, I did have to address it because here the last 48 hours, this issue has just exploded. Major League Baseball now is in putting off the opening of the season, and that's open air. So, I'm not sure where this is all going, but I certainly hope that, everybody stays safe out there and do what you have to do to protect yourselves. Let's get back to you, Pat. Now, are you from Ohio or where are you from?
Actually, I was born in Payton City, West Virginia. But
really? Okay.
I moved up here when my parents were living up here because my father worked for GM in Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
And I lived in Cleveland until I was 12.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of you've been around northeastern Ohio. Now you worked in the automobile industry.
Yes, I did. I worked for Chrysler for 30 and a half years.
Wow. Okay. That's a changing industry too, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is. And it's a shame that it did what it did. I got out right before the bankruptcy and everything, all that happened back in 2008. Yeah. My last day of work was January 1st, 2009.
Okay.
So, I was out before the crap hit the fan.
Yeah.
But It's a shame, they tore that building down and it's all Amazon and everything else now.
Yeah.
The Amazon moved in there and so did FedEx
Yeah.
because of the rail access and stuff like that. It's
Absolutely.
a shame. There won't ever be a good paying manufacturing job there again.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. There's an international aspect now when it comes to supply chains, and you have automation now, and it's just a different industry. It's just a different industry all the way around. At what point did you get involved with ham radio? I mean, was that always a passion of yours? You seem like you're pretty good with electronics. I've been to your studio there. You're one of those guys that's obviously always tinkering.
Always.
Yeah. How did you get involved with the ham radio?
Well, the ham radio started with me. I was actually a CBer for about 25 years. I picked it up in 1968, actually.
Oh, wow. You were one of the early adopters.
In 1991, they did away with the code test in amateur radio, or at least the entry level, which was a technician class.
Okay.
And when they did that, a friend of mine, who I'll give credit for this, he came over and dared me to get my license.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He comes into my house one afternoon or one evening, and he says, I'm studying for my ham test. He says, you're too busy. You'd never be able to get your ham license.
Yeah.
And that was about the middle of March. By the middle of April, I took the test. And that year, it was taking 6 to 8 weeks to get your license. And by June 1st of 1991, I had my license.
Okay.
I was a technician class for about 15 years.
When you're on the radio, on the ham radio, what do you guys talk about? What do you do? What's the subject matter of the communication that you guys do on there?
It's a little bit of everything. A lot of the talking side of it's just only a portion of what is available for hams.
Okay.
There's a million things you can do. There's a computer packet, which is kind of like your digital stuff. You've got volunteering all over the place. We work parades. We work emergency events. I actually am the coordinator for this thing called Skywarn in Summit County.
All right.
And what that is we work with the National Weather Service when there's storms. If somebody spots a tornado, it usually, if you hear a lot of times you'll hear on the news, it'll say there was a tornado reported by a local spotter in Summit County. More than likely, that information came from me, and I picked it up off of the radio from somebody in the field.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. That's absolutely.
We're a bunch of storm chasers too.
So do you know guys that chase those things and get swept up in all the wind and all that?
There's roughly 120 of us in Summit County.
Wow. I did not realize that, Pat. That's totally awesome. I mean, that's like really cool. That's really cool. Did this, and at some point you got involved with internet radio. And that's kind of up my alley. I'm not really an internet radio guy. Well, for the audience, let's talk a little bit about what the difference is between internet radio and, let's say, a podcast.
The internet radio is a 24/7 thing. We run. If you're decent, you're going to run more than just talk radio or the podcasting. Podcasts are all pretty much recordings.
Yeah.
My station does live radio, and I have 2 live shows that are here, and I run, I think, 3 podcasts. Basically, it's a 24/7 thing.
Right.
It takes a little bit of patience to run one. You have to get, if you're going to run music, you have to have the licensing for the music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is not that expensive, but it's a pain in the rear end sometimes because of the hoops they make you jump through.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to manage as part of your cost and so on. What would be one of the differences between, let's say, internet radio and terrestrial radio? Now, the obvious one would be anybody in the world can listen to any internet radio station.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in most aspects, the sound quality is 100 times better than anything you'll ever get off the air.
Yeah.
That's the big thing with internet radio as opposed to something terrestrial or even local radio. You're going to get the background noises and everything that's coming in over the air, unless it's packetized or some of the FM stations today are all packetized radio and stuff like that. That's going to be a little cleaner. Basically, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We run. We all run promotions for different stuff. If you got something you want people to know about, you just put it on your station and let it run for a couple of days.
Yeah. When you say you have 2 live shows, and I've been a guest on one of them, I enjoyed myself there. What are the 2 live shows that you have, and when are they on?
We run my actual podcast / show live show is Radioactive. The reason or the way I came up with that name is we're actually a bunch of ham radio operators on that show.
Okay.
And figuring radio, and we're all pretty active people, so there's your radio active. I had my partner, Dale Miracle. He's one of my co-hosts. Actually came up with that title, and as soon as he told me, I knew we had a hit there.
Oh yeah, I like to play on words. Absolutely, yeah.
And then we have Under Lock and Key, which has been around. She's been around for a little while. She's kind of a conspiracy theorist, and she runs actually doubling back here. Radioactive runs Sunday nights live from 7 to 9 p.m.
And that's Eastern Standard Time.
And that's Eastern Standard, right, on Crooked River. That's the easiest way to get us. We're also on Live 365. You're right. We're available on Roku, Simple Radio, 2 or 3 other different places. You can actually even tell Alexa to play us. If you tell her to play Crooked River Radio Network on Live 365, you'll get us. That's pretty cool that way.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to listen in.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a nice thing about internet radio. It's as close as the palm of your hand a lot of times if you obviously have a phone or what have you. Streaming devices in the home, very big now. And just a lot of ways to check it out. Now, what was the one about the conspiracy theories?
That's her name's Stephanie Kirkor, and she runs a show called Under Lock and Key.
Okay.
And she's on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8. I usually co-host the show because I run the board for her.
Okay, sure. And of course, here again, that's Eastern Standard Time.
Right.
And Crooked River Radio, you can find you there. A lot of conspiracy theories about the coronavirus.
We were covering that in the last show, actually.
Okay, so are these shows available as podcasts?
Yes, they are. I've started a Spreaker account that's called Crooked River Media. And I'm starting to load things there. If you look for either one of the podcasts, either Radioactive or the Under Lock and Key, you'll either find it on the Crooked River.
On the shows that you do, the live shows and all that, what do you enjoy most about the shows? Do you just enjoy the fact that there's a lot of people out there listening, or do you enjoy the interviews?
I love the interviews, Billy. I love the interviews. There is nothing like taking and being able to get somebody on a phone or we usually use Skype or something to that effect to bring them in.
Yeah.
And I really like the way I feel myself as a pretty decent interviewer if I want to be.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of a researcher. I've tried to dig up the dirt.
Yeah. Well, you had my whole resume when you had me on there.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I did that. There's we do this podcast. The last one we picked up is Dumbing It Down with Dave. I think you know him, Dave Canyon.
I don't know him, but I've known the name, and I've seen some of your promos for it.
He's from New York, and he does a 30-minute podcast. It's really pretty decent, and he talks about his life and the pursuit of life, I guess you'd say it.
Okay.
And,
is he like one of these inspirational guys, or is it humor? Or
he's kind of humorous. He talks about everything from procrastination to just the stuff that goes on in his life. Anyway, I decided to ask him to to be on my show. And a couple of weeks ago, this is actually all available on the Crooked River media thing. We did a 2-hour thing with him, and I hated to see that 2 hours end. That got a blast. We were talking about all kinds of stuff. He was telling us what life is like around him, and really good time with him.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out. I know of him. I've heard of the podcast, but I've never really checked that out in depth. So I might have to do that.
If you listen to him with the interview, it actually really gets you. You get a sense on what he's really like in real life.
Okay.
And he's a truck driver by trade. But there's a lot more to him than just truck driving.
Well, that's the thing. If you can bring out the human aspect in your show about who you are, I believe the audience really has a tendency to connect with that.
I believe that too.
Yeah, I mean, as opposed to being some sort of a character or just telling jokes, if you can bring a realness to your content and the stories that you're trying to tell,
right,
and something that is relatable, that can make all the difference in the world. As far as looking towards the future, the Crooked River Radio is how old now? About a year, maybe?
We're about 9 months old. We started January or July 1st, I think it was.
Okay.
So we're 7 or 8 months old now.
Okay. And over that time, have you come up with any goals of what you would like it to do? Because I got to tell you, I've been associated with a number of internet radio stations over the years, and they're very short-lived. And I was just kind of wondering, is there a place you want to take this? Is there in terms of listenership, or where would you like it to go? If you could, have your dream come true with Crooked River Radio, what would you like to happen?
I would like it somewhat to go a little bit commercial and get the listenership to support that.
Okay.
My whole goal when I started this was just, the history, but I'll tell everybody.
Sure.
We were at another station that it worked out. We had actually went through two stations, to be honest.
Yeah.
One was over there in Kent, and the other one was down there in Cuyahoga Valley. And when we were down there, I got into a little bit of a dispute with the program manager and ended up telling him I didn't want anything to do with it anymore. And we ended up leaving. Well, when I left, I really wanted to podcast because the stuff is addicting.
Sure.
Live radio and that is really addicting. It gets the adrenaline running.
Yeah.
And I really wanted somewhere to take my show. Well, I had 3 or 4 different offers, and I started looking into the internet side of this, and it really, to me, it wasn't that expensive. But the way you kept your costs down is you when you make your studio, you don't take and put it in an office building. That was a big thing with me. My costs are right now running about $125 a month for everything that we do. And I mean, we've got live video and everything else.
Yeah.
And to me, as long as it stays at about that, and I can still afford it, which, I'm getting a little older, but I'm still working and stuff.
Yeah.
And as long as I can afford the money, I'll stay with it, because I love music, and as I'm driving around, my little piece of heaven is my station because of the music I play.
That's awesome.
It's really great to be able to play all your own music, which with me it's I like stuff from the late 50s till probably about the mid 80s.
Yeah,
and that's what we play on the station.
That sounds like an interesting format. That sounds like you'd have a pretty broad base for that.
I'm always open for people to. In fact, this last weekend, somebody told me, I haven't heard any Tina Turner on your station yet. What's up with that? So
yeah,
we went and found 20 Tina Turner tunes, and they're on there now.
Awesome.
And I'm always open to suggestions like that.
Oh, sure. And it's very nice to get feedback because people are listening.
Right.
So I mean, that's always a good thing, right?
And our right now our music library runs about 1,500 songs, 15 or 1,600, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting for eventually for 3,000. I think that'd be a nice format, and that's almost 2 weeks of music. So
you can be found. I'm going to let the audience know all the places we that they can find you. They can find the show. Correct me if I'm wrong. crookedriverradio.com.
Right.
Okay. And where are you in terms of carriers now? Where else can you be found?
I'm on Live 365, Roku, Radio Garden, and Simple Radio.
Okay, and you're also on Spreaker with the and that is the podcast app. The app is free, and you can always download that on your phone and listen to some of your episodes there. Social media. Where are you? Go ahead.
We're on Facebook. In fact, both of our live shows, the Radioactive and Stephanie's Under Lock and Key, both run live. I've been tinkering with the Facebook Live software, and the last show actually recorded the whole 2 hours. The whole 2 hours of Radioactive is on there.
Okay.
I'm eventually going to get on YouTube as soon as I can get their software to work.
Okay. You're on Twitter as well. Is it Crooked River?
Crooked River Red. They wouldn't let me put the IO on there. Said I was out of characters.
Yeah, you only get so many.
I am quite a character.
Yes, you are. I will give you that. You know what I like about Twitter, and I just want to wrap this up by talking just a little bit about social media. For what you're doing, the Facebook Lives, I would have to say there is an interest in that. Have you gotten a lot of views off of those?
That has almost doubled our listenership.
Yeah. Without
a doubt. That's why I decided to go that direction.
You know, I work in marketing, and one of the things, my personal feelings around Facebook and some of the politics that has gone into that, I'm not big on it, but there's absolutely no question. Here's what everybody forgets: it does work.
Exactly. And a lot of people would rather take and listen to something on Facebook Live than actually go to a internet radio station and click on the link.
Absolutely. And if you, those Facebook posts, those boosts, for those of you that have a business and you have a business Facebook page, those boosts generally do get some traction, and they're not horribly expensive. They're not horribly expensive
right.
at all. Now, what I like about Twitter is the real timeness of it. There's an issue that's exploding and there's breaking news. I mean, you can get, and that's not scientific. You can't get a cross section or like a poll, but you can get instant reactions from the public, and you can get instant news briefs from all of the news sources that you're following. So from that aspect of it, Twitter has been really good for me. I've really gotten some because of the fact that the trending topics, for example, when I do a show about a given topic and it's really trending, I get a lot of listens. And it's really good with Twitter to hop into that feeding frenzy when everybody wants that content and throw it out there. So, I'm a social media kind of, I for some reason it clicks with me. Certain things, Twitter has worked, Facebook has worked. I'm told that you got to do Pinterest, but you know what? I just haven't found the niche for that. That just hasn't taken off with me for whatever reason.
I actually have a Pinterest account, but I just can't figure out how to, where my station's going to fit in.
Yeah, I can't, but that's not to say it's not a good platform for somebody else. But for me, it just hasn't taken fire like Twitter has, like Facebook has. Business to business, I'm a big believer in LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the way to go for business to business. It's a lot smaller group of people, but much more active, much more interested in what you're doing. And I've experimented with TikTok lately. I've been on TikTok, and I actually interviewed a really big influencer on TikTok. She has over like 50,000 followers.
Wow.
And that brought me some not only listens to the podcast, but it increased my my visibility on TikTok. Here again, from the marketing world, I can tell you that Instagram is losing ground for a lot of reasons. The way they've prioritized their content, and it's changed a lot. And with TikTok has taken a big bite out of that. And I've been saying for a long time, if TikTok puts in addition to the videos, if you're not familiar with TikTok, you have the option of 15 seconds for a video, or you can do a minute. Okay. And I feel that if they incorporate photos, just plain photos like Instagram does, that's going to be a game changer. Right. That is going to be an absolute game changer. Now, you can for those of you that are listening, you can find Billy D's on TikTok. Real easy to find at Billy D's. The Billy D's podcast is on Facebook, at Billy D's on Twitter. I don't have a lot of variations, and any social media platform that you want to try and find me on, it's just Billy D's. Pat, interesting conversation today. I want to wish you the best of luck with Crooked River Radio. It's nice to have somebody who's very passionate about what they're doing. And I'm a believer that internet radio and podcast, anything audio is really going to be big, because now with streaming devices and everything else, it's been a game changer for audio. And voice and voice. I mean, it really has been a game changer. So I would here again, my audience, do check out Pat Morrow and all of the things that he's got going on. crookedriverradio.com. Stay safe out there. Pay attention to the health warnings and do all the proper precautions. Don't hide in the basement, but do all the proper precautions and stay safe and stay well. Pat, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Bill.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Pat. And thank you, folks at home, the Billy D's podcast. And once again, follow me on Twitter at Billy D's. And thank you very much for listening. Well, hello, everyone. I am Billy D's from the self-titled Billy D's podcast. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and many more of the best podcast networks. Join me for my commentary and interviews. Follow me on Twitter, real easy to find, at Billy D's. I am Billy D's. I'd love to have you listen in.